How's it going, everybody? So in this video, we're going to be discussing mastering the carbohydrate game. Okay. So I've personally been experimenting with carbohydrates and a wide array of diets for about 10 years now, since around 2012. Mostly to solve my extreme health problems. Various times of my journey, I suspected I had some kind of blood sugar issue or diabetes or something. And I actually have gotten tested for diabetes at various times, simply because I thought I was exhibiting extreme diabetes symptoms. Um, but it was a very, very shaky type of thing. But nonetheless, experimentation I have done. And so I figure I would kind of make a video kind of pulling together my current consensus on carbohydrates and how this kind of comes together. Okay, so this is generally speaking a protocol that works for most people when it comes to problems surrounding carbohydrates, and I find this can be tweaked depending on your goals. So first of all, we have something called the Carbohydrate Hierarchy. I do have a blog post where I kind of outline it, although I think that it lacks nuance and might be a bit outdated. But generally speaking, the Carbohydrate Hierarchy, it kind of lists carbohydrates from the most optimal to the least optimal. And basically, I believe that fruit is probably the number one most optimal carbohydrate for most people to be consuming, and I'm going to explain why. So obviously, things like whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, I don't think that they are universally negative. I think that they can have some potential negative effects if they're not prepared properly and consumed in the right way, soaking, sprouting, cooking, etc. And I think for a lot of people, there, like myself, for example, there are pretty extreme kind of like, some people might have unique specific intolerances that are unique to the individual. And so you should probably, exercise caution with these foods, right? But they are the lowest in glycemic load and highest in nutrition out of the grains and the beans and nuts and the seeds type of thing. But fruit, besides bananas, generally has a lower glycemic load as well. And glycemic load, I believe, is a pretty good indicator of the overall glycemic effect that takes into account not only the rise and spike in blood sugar, but also the total quantity of the concentration of carbohydrate in that particular food, which means it is a good indicator of its totality of effect. And keeping in mind, combining the carbohydrate source with other foods is also going to have a pretty significant impact on its glycemic response. But nonetheless, I still think that's a pretty good thing. So anyway, the main reason why we're into fruit, right, why we're fruit fiends, is mostly because of the high mineral density and the high nutrient density and the electrolytes and things that are present in relatively high amounts, especially if you're eating the higher impact fruits. So I think things like grapes, which are a berry, bananas, which are actually a berry. A lot of people don't know that. I think oranges. I think obviously avocados and certain types of berries and melons and things. They have a relatively high amount of nutrition that can be rather challenging to get from other places. So things like folate, vitamin B1 or thiamine, magnesium, potassium, and vitamin C. These are things that are generally missing from like carnivore diets, for example, but a lot of other diets as well. And you might get some folate, thiamine, and magnesium from like whole grains and beans and stuff like that. And it's true that you have things like phytic acid and whatnot that are in those whole grain type foods, but in general, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, the phytic acid and stuff there's kind of like a pretty strong debate to be had around how significant the anti-nutrient qualities of those foods actually are, which is why I'm not like dogmatic about avoiding whole grains at all costs. But I think a lot of people, number one, there's a question as to how much of those nutrients in the whole grains you're going to absorb, right? How much thiamine are you going to absorb from brown rice? That's the first thing. The second thing is, even if the bioavailability is not affected that much by the anti-nutrients in the grain, how much of that are you digesting? Because a lot of people seem to have trouble digesting those foods. And a lot of people just meaning those are like a primary source of digestive illness for certain people who are uniquely triggered by it, myself included. So that's the first thing. Now, this is actually kind of a good segue into white rice, okay? So the thing is, no one ever had a vitamin B1 or a thiamine deficiency from consuming whole grains. So for people out there who make a huge deal about whole grains like being anti-nutritious and like stripping the body of thiamine and nutrients and stuff, whole grains never did that. We never really had we didn't have epidemics of beriberi and vitamin B1 deficiency until we started to refine the white rice. And, you know, if you're not familiar with how vitamin B1 deficiency was discovered, then, you know, you have no argument in the game of like anti-nutrition. Because, yeah, this is like a primary thing to be considering is that white rice, when they actually stripped the grain of all of its anti-nutrients, also stripped it of its nutrients as well. That was when we had whole boatloads of sailors, Japanese sailors, dying off and stuff from vitamin B1 deficiency. So what I'm saying is the magnitude of negative effect of these whole grains is probably not that great if we didn't have deficiency syndromes until we started refining those foods. So a little bit more on that before I go back into why fruit is like the optimal carbohydrate is that my suspicion is that vitamin deficiencies are not caused by a lack of an essential nutrient that's required for life. Let's keep in mind there's human beings that can do intermittent fasting for like 30 days or more and not develop a vitamin C deficiency or a vitamin B1 deficiency. But if you are consuming a diet only of white jasmine rice or like white rice that's unfortified for 30 days, you start to get vitamin B1 deficiencies or the syndrome known as beriberi. So I find that interesting that you can eat nothing for like 30 days or you can eat nothing but red meat for like, years and not experience any like deficiency symptoms. But the minute you start to consume refined foods, and that's like the mainstay of your diet, you start to develop these deficiency syndromes if you don't supplement. So what I'm getting at here is that I don't think there's a actual daily requirement of B vitamins and stuff like that. What I think is going on is I think when you consume a macronutrient like carbohydrate, your requirement for vitamin B1 and some of these other nutrients goes way up, not because there's an essential intake, but because these vitamins and minerals are required to metabolize energy from the carbohydrate or from the macronutrient. So if you just take dextrose powder every single day and you're not consuming B1 and these other things from other sources, the damn isolated refined carbohydrate itself can actually strip your body of its nutrient stores. And that's what I think. And I think that's why it's so important to fortify your diet somehow with extra vitamins and minerals if you are eating a lot of white rice and stuff like that. But I'm going to discuss why that's not something anyone should really do unless you're an athlete here in a bit. But that's sounds pretty damn accurate to me. And I just think, again, it's a matter of correlation versus causation that most people are not catching. So anyway, yeah, so with that being said, fruit, I believe, is number one. It's high in all these other nutrients, which, by the way, thiamine and vitamin C and these other nutrients, it's not just preventing a deficiency that these are decent for. I think they do have benefits, especially if you're eating refined foods. Cofactors for things like for dopamine and norepinephrine and some of these other enzymes and hormones and neurotransmitters. Sure. But I also think it's important to be skeptical about how much benefit you're going to be getting from taking like a B vitamin complex every single day if your diet is mostly from whole foods. But anyway, if you're just eating whole carbohydrate sources, the whole kind of vitamin deficiency thing is probably null. Do you really think our ancestors, and this is a pill to nature fallacy, okay, but still, it's not a good argument by itself, but think about it. For thousands or upon thousands of years, millions of years, human beings had to survive off the land. And if you read Nourishing Diets by Sally Fullen, I'm pretty sure the human race would be extinct if we really needed to get the government's RDIs of nutrients. Seriously. Okay? How many hunter-gatherers do you really think were getting, 400 milligrams of magnesium a day? Even in our modern times with high food availability, the only reason why we're able to reach these high numbers of nutrients now is because of the supermarkets that make these foods available year-round. But, changing the seasons, the food availability, and different plants not being available, first of all, there's a lot of nutrients that scientists have not yet discovered. In the foods we're eating, there's hundreds of nutrients that have not really been studied well or discovered. That's the first thing, is we've only identified a certain amount of nutrients. The second thing is there's so many foods that humans have been eating, like insects and like tree barks and crap like that, that scientists completely ignore these days. So to think that the only recommended nutrients that human beings need are in the main foods that weren't even available a couple hundred years ago, it's just hilarious to me. It's reductionism at its finest, which is why I've been criticizing the scientific method so much as of late. And it gets all these biohackers and these people caught in these cycles of just never being able to be consistent with one protocol and finding something that works. Instead, they're always on that next thing. And it's like a damn addiction where you're not actually trying to solve your health problems at a certain point. You're just kind of always trying to optimize, but never actually stabilize, per se. It's a really bad problem that I'm glad I got myself out of for the most part. But anyway, if you just eat fruit and you're also eating obviously meat and organs, you're probably going to be fine. So high mineral density, high in folate, B1, magnesium, potassium, vitamin C, and also vitamin E, depending on what you're eating. But vitamin E is another one where I think vitamin E is only necessary depending on what type of fats you're eating and the amount. Okay, that's why vitamin E is only found in higher fatty foods, especially polyunsaturated fats, because it's not required unless you're trying to metabolize those fats and trying to offset peroxidation and whatnot from the fatty acids, lipid peroxidation. So white rice, probably steals B vitamins and other things from your body, which is why so many people seem to benefit from high-dose thiamine. So after years of eating a high refined carb diet, even with government's fortification, there's people out there. This guy from his name's Elliot Singleton or some shit like that from E2 Advanced Nutrition or something, and I think that he's one of these overcomplicated biohacking reductionist people, and I think a lot of people might not actually benefit from this protocol, but then again, I think it's worth trying. I myself did the protocol. If you're not familiar, I have videos on it. Comment down below and I'll kind of send you a link to his videos. But basically, the idea is that carnivore people and ketogenic dieters, they experience a really strong benefit from going keto, bumps in energy and mood and stuff like that, mostly because they're removing the requirement for thiamine, and that they're heavily reliant on vitamin B1 and thiamine in order to feel good, and they feel like shit when they eat carbs, mostly because they might be thiamine deficient. So they might have subclinical beriberi, basically. And then when they go to a keto diet, now so like there's a hole, right? There's a hole that's being produced that's just like draining your thiamine whenever you eat carbs. And when you go keto, that hole is plugged, but now you don't have a lot of thiamine coming in if you're just eating like muscle meats and stuff, or even organs. And so the idea is going keto reduces that like thiamine drain, because now you're not burning off all your thiamine, all your B1 from eating carbs. But now refined carbs, and now you still need to replenish that vitamin B1. So the idea is if you take like benfotiamine, or what's another one, subdroxythiamine or something. There's a fat soluble version. There's a couple of other versions of thiamine, vitamin B1. But anyway, you go on this protocol, you take like vitamin C and some of the cofactors, magnesium, and thiamine, and basically at first you're supposed to feel even shittier, but then supposedly you hit it like a tipping point where you start to feel better and better. I had done this protocol, and at first I thought I felt like amazing. I think it was really the vitamin C. Vitamin C actually has a lot of benefits on mood and energy and stuff, and the magnesium. But I spent a lot of money on vitamin B1, and now I kind of feel like, it really didn't give me it really wasn't working as well as I thought. But I made videos talking about how I thought it was the best shit ever after a couple days. But that just goes to show you, again, are you optimizing or stabilizing? You can't really tell if a protocol, like a lot of times a protocol doesn't fully show its benefit until a couple of weeks later. But if it starts to do little things like, improve your mood, improve your sleep, improve your insulin sensitivity, improve your stress response, just like adaptogenic herbs, the first like couple days, they might have some kind of noticeable change. But what you may not realize is that they're working deeply on something that's actually promoting a very strong change over time, and their real benefits aren't actually realized until weeks down the road because of the little building blocks that are taking place over time from that change. So that's very important, especially if you're doing this thiamine experiment. A book I recommend to get a better hang on the subject is Vitamania. I believe the author's name was Catherine Price. I had read this in like 2020. I bought it on like Amazon or something. Very good read just to kind of understand the history of vitamins and minerals, how the RDIs got developed, and vitamin deficiency diseases and the history of them. And then also how marketers, how like food companies and pharmaceutical companies started trying to market these vitamins and minerals as like life-saving agents, where basically, cereals were getting promoted as health foods because they were taking sugar and grain byproducts and just adding a bunch of like fortified vitamins and minerals to it. There's like King Vitamin and stuff like that, and they had like 1,000 times your daily amount of like vitamins and minerals. Meanwhile, like literally these things do absolutely nothing beneficial unless you have some kind of deficiency. And now you look at our modern times, and every fucking product you buy on the market, like I can't even buy a protein powder these days without it being spiked with added vitamins and minerals. And we have like an overload of iron in the modern food supply due to cereals and grains and cream of rice and even like energy drinks these days, like some of these things, and like freaking pre-workouts and stuff and protein powders are fortified with like iron as well as other vitamins and minerals as well. And so basically this whole idea that you need these certain vitamins and mineral intake is mostly an overblown type of thing. Number one, to prevent deficiency diseases in people who are addicted to junk and refined carbs, because there is an increased need, right, for nutrients if that's your diet, simply because these foods seem to strip your body of nutrition. But then on top of that, On top of that, the vitamin craze basically serves as a gimmick to like promote profits for these companies. So yeah. All right, so now we have kind of like caveats for athletes, okay? So the average person does not need a large amount of carbohydrates, okay? So again, like this idea that you need over like 100 grams of carbs a day just to survive is absolute bullshit. First of all, so gluconeogenesis, okay, is not exclusive to producing. Remember, gluconeogenesis is just creating carbohydrates and glucose substrates from endogenous means, okay? It's not just amino acids and protein. And as a matter of fact, amino acids and protein are the lowest kind of source of endogenous carbohydrate production, okay? Your body can literally create glucose from free fatty acids, from the glycerol backbone of triglycerides, from the Cori cycle, pyruvate and lactate, all right? Then there's, I guess you can call it glucotic amino acids like alanine that can produce glucose. But the thing is, it's a demand-driven process, okay? So if you are not doing exercise in a way that requires glucose production, your body will not create glucose unless you're exercising, like endogenously. Now, if you're eating exogenous carbohydrates from like whatever, white rice, brown rice, bananas, it doesn't matter. Well, and you're not exercising, so obviously, your body will use the glucose in order to refill glycogen stores. But then after a certain point, you start to obviously just be eating an excess of energy. This will happen with fat too, obviously, and to a lesser extent protein due to the thermic effect of feeding. You start to produce body fat, obviously. Any kind of excess of energy, your body produces body fat after a while. But your body only needs the bananas or the white rice or something to refill glycogen. Outside of that, and glucose and stuff, it doesn't really need exogenous carbs. And furthermore, like I said, your body can produce up to like over 200 grams of carbs a day. And the more trained of an athlete you might be, the more trained as an athlete you are, the more the body upregulates mechanisms and machinery endogenously to create more glucose over time due to the demand. So what I'm getting at here is like there's really not much of a need for energy like from carbohydrates outside of the diet, like in the external environment. Consumption of bananas and carbs and stuff to say that it's necessary and it's good and stuff makes no sense. That literally can only come out of somebody who is completely ignorant to the endogenous carbohydrate production science, to the how your body can upregulate fat oxidation over time. Like there's studies on trained athletes on ketogenic diets past like 16 weeks, by the way, as a caveat, because in studies, short-term studies, you won't see this, where athletes, they start to burn twice as much fat per minute as carb-adapted athletes, okay? And they can start to actually oxidize fatty acids for energy over 90% of their VO2 max. That's insane. That's like saying you can go and do a boxing match, okay? Or a boxing match isn't even that intensive. You can go and do full on wrestling bouts on a keto adapted state, because wrestling scrambles transiently go above 90% of your VO2 max, and your body's like producing enough, it's oxidizing fat enough at the right intensities to support such exercise. And then there's studies showing that, and actually using muscle biopsies showing glycogen depletion in elite level endurance athletes. Your body will deplete glycogen in a keto adapted state and then refill its glycogen at the same rate and sometimes faster than carb-adapted athletes without adding any carbs to the diet post-exercise at all. And so I'm not telling people that carbs are like the devil or something. What I'm saying is there's not really much of a need for exogenous carbohydrate whatsoever, depending on how adapted your body is to fat. And I'm not going to get into this in this video, but I have videos where I explain it pretty thoroughly. Adapting to a low carb, high fat diet, it requires the same changes that adapting to a new exercise training routine will do. The first 4 weeks, you're sore as hell and you're having trouble recovering from like a new weight training routine if you've never done it before. But after 4 weeks, your body adapts and becomes less and less sensitive to it, and you become better and better at the exercise program. The same thing happens with diet. That's why you see kind of lower performance on low carb diets in the first 4 weeks in studies, but then over time you start to see benefits, okay? So anyway, what I'm getting at is even athletes past a certain point don't really need to supplement carbohydrates. And then you look at the average person who's slamming down, even healthy eating circles like sweet potatoes and shit like that, and I got to get my healthy carbs in. For me, so just to summarize so people know where I don't think carbs are the devil. I think if you're eating carbs, you should eat carbs for the unique nutrients they contain. There is zero reason why a regular person who's not an athlete with digestive issues, I might add, a regular person should be eating white rice, jasmine rice, other than because they enjoy it. Because you don't actually need that. If we're talking for we're trying to be healthy and optimizing nutrition, there's zero reason. People say resistant starch and crap like that for my gut health. That is nonsense. There is zero reason for white rice, white sugar, or even honey for that matter. There's not enough nutrition to justify an average person eating that. They're not trying to support, multiple competitive jiu-jitsu sessions a day like I am, and I'm not even eating that high of a carb diet. So I just don't understand that argument. You just hear a lot of people, trying to justify it. So nutrient deprived carb sources. The average person doesn't need them. An athlete might benefit if they can't, consume potatoes or sweet potatoes that are higher in nutrition. And I'm going to get to kind of how exogenous carbs can benefit somebody despite the endogenous carbohydrate production. But if you're an average person and you're eating oranges or something, right, because they contain vitamin C, potassium, magnesium, that makes a lot more sense. One of the number one problems people have on ketogenic diets or carnivore diets or any of that, mostly carnivore diets, but even keto, is number one because your insulin your insulin spikes, become null. Your blood sugar becomes so balanced, you start to excrete glycogen and stuff like that at a high rate in the first couple weeks, and it normalizes over time as your body learns to restore its own glycogen from low carb intake. But basically, you get a diuresis of sodium, and your body kind of dumps electrolytes. So if you are consuming fruit, okay, so you're consuming oranges and bananas, you're getting a lot of potassium, a lot of magnesium, a lot of vitamin C and these water-soluble nutrients. And you're getting, fructose and sucrose and some of these varying kind of carbohydrate sources. And this is going to help you stay hydrated. This is why I like fruit so much, because it's highly hydrating. Literally removes the number one problem that people have on low-carb diets, which is all sorts of symptoms coming from electrolyte depletion. Even that whole cortisol issue, it's mostly due to a lack of sodium, due to the kidney and whatnot. A lot of people who have carbohydrate dysregulation problems and high aldosterone levels and stuff like that, and cortisol issues, This will solve their issue right there. Is like, so for people like that who have like sodium retention issues and POTS and stuff like that, and different hormonal issues, cortisol issues and stuff, that might be a case to consume maybe like 80 grams of net carbs coming from like juicy, hydrating fruits. But there's caveats to that. And that's just due to the mineral intake and the hydration intake, And then, of course, like changing your sodium to kind of like negate symptoms. So anyway, so yeah, God damn it, gluconeogenesis is a demand-driven process. And exogenous carbs may have an ergogenic effect independent of glycogen, okay? There's a mouth switch study where basically elite level endurance athletes or whatever, they were kind of like doing their endurance race and stuff, and they swished around Gatorade in their mouth and spit it out. Didn't actually digest the glucose. Researchers found up to like as little as 7 grams of sugar just hitting the taste receptors had a significant, overwhelming performance-enhancing effect. That was not explained by endogenous energy. It was literally just their brain circuitry turning on and somehow increasing the drive to push farther. Probably due to the central governor theory, serotonin and dopamine signaling. So for athletes, okay, like let's say that you do feel like you need more carbs and you think you perform better on carbs. Like first of all, again, if you are quitting a low carb diet within like a week, and you're like, oh, it just didn't work for me. It's like, well, again, you're optimizing and you're not stabilizing. It takes a couple weeks for your performance and energy and all that stuff to stabilize, and at that point, it becomes superhuman past a certain point. So first of all, you need to take a good enough time. Second of all, if you are just like one of those people who thinks you need more carbs, so here is kind of what I think. Why I target honey before my training sessions. So targeting honey before my training sessions, what I have found, so there might be, there's like keto gains and these targeted keto protocols. Here's why you might benefit from carbs if you're an athlete. So the rate of glycogen replenishment and the rate of like ATP production from carbohydrates and from fats and stuff. Yes, you can adapt to burning way more fatty acids over time if you are on a low carb diet. However, different people probably have different rates of glucose recycling, and I think that they do actually, and different rates of fat burning and fat oxidation from different forms of exercise. The more trained you become on certain diets, the better you adapt to and the better you can perform over time. However, adding a little bit of carbs around training can potentially improve the rate at which your body can produce glycogen and recycle it and stuff like that. So I think that there is merit to glycogen and glucose supplementation and stuff like that. And you should experiment. So what I found and what I recommend to my athletes is timing 20 to 50 grams of net carbohydrates from honey specifically, and sometimes like a 50-50 mix of honey and dextrose powder about 30 minutes or so before training. And usually we dose that with caffeine and stuff. And I find that produces the best results. And that's what I actually used in my last tournament. I was eating probably 50 grams of net carbs from berries at the very end of my day. And then just like meat, about 2 pounds of meat a day. Sometimes non-starchy vegetable just because. And then I would time like 30 to 50 grams of like honey, of carbs from honey, 30 minutes before my workout or before my training session, which lasted a number of hours. And I tasted ketones in my mouth the entire time. But what I think is that's a very efficient way. You're not consuming more carbs than your body needs. It's an easy way to cut weight, by the way. really fast, and you're not sacrificing performance. You're giving the body what it needs when it needs it, and nothing extra. And you're avoiding. So there's that. So one more thing I'll say on honey is that I think honey has unique properties, and it shouldn't be just automatically wrote off as like a refined carb. So first of all, there are trace amounts of nutrients in honey, although I think most nutrients in honey are so low that it's not really worth like blowing up about. The second thing is different types of honeys probably have different types of benefits, and there's a lot of honey that claims to be raw and this and that, but it's really processed. The next thing is that there's polyphenols a lot of times in these various honeys and stuff like that. And the polyphenols actually can blunt the insulin response. This has been shown with various types of carbs, including apples and whatnot, not to mention different types of fiber and other things that are in it, like the pectin in these fruits. Polyphenols and bananas and these things, they seem to be directly kind of blunting the insulin response and the glycemic load. So there's something to say about these polyphenols, and not to mention a lot of polyphenols that are found in these foods, especially carbohydrate foods like honey that are higher in. So they might be affecting neurotransmitters in a beneficial way as well. So anyway, that's something to kind of consider. One more thing I'm going to say is that so if you are going to consume, I have found I have like a damn hangover effect if I consume a large bolus of like white rice. I'm talking like 300 grams of net carbs in one meal from white rice. Yes, it's possible. Do not take me to a sushi buffet if you expect to be walking around an hour later. I will literally just want to go to sleep. And I think there might be a tipping point where even a so-called healthy person can have reactive hypoglycemia if they consume too much of a certain carb source. I also think there's something to say about postprandial androgenic type of responses where you get an increase in adrenaline, but no change in like blood sugar that's abnormal. A lot of people have postprandial adrenaline responses, and that's a very unique phenomenon that can happen from various types of foods depending on the person. And different people will have different glycemic responses from different foods. So if you're not familiar with that concept, read the book Wired to Eat by Rob Wolf. So anyway, like one person could eat a shit ton of jasmine rice and be completely dead in an hour. Another person can eat a whole thing of jasmine rice and be completely fine. It's individual. But beyond that, there was one more thing I was gonna say. I forgot what it was. I experimented recently a couple of days in a row where I ate 150 grams of pure sugar coming from an energy drink and like a giant size like Hershey bar or something. I just did that because I was like, man, I must be hypoglycemic, and which is kind of stupid now that I think about it looking back, considering all the carb things I've done with no problem. But anyway, I ate 150 grams of pure sugar, measured my glucose response at various points in time, and I found, obviously a pretty significant spike in blood sugar after that, but no reactive hypoglycemia like I was expecting, and there's no protein along with that meal or anything. Then I had tried on separate days consuming 150 grams of white rice, of carbs from white rice, and I actually found a slight reactive hypoglycemic response, although nothing to write home about. But I think that is an interesting thing. My blood sugar did kind of dip down into reactive hypoglycemic kind of things from jasmine rice, same amount of carbs, and it took a little bit longer too for that reactive hypoglycemia to take place. But it wasn't anything like deadly, like I was going to be in a coma or something, but it was definitely noticeable on the blood sugar scale. So what I am getting at is carbohydrates and the negative impacts you might have are going to be unique to the individual. And if you're not an athlete, you should only eat carbs, maybe because you enjoy them, but that are nutrient dense. Eat them more so for their unique nutrients, especially like polyphenols and things. I think those are something to look more into, especially for nootropics and shit like that. Considering most nootropics people take are derivatives of some kind of polyphenol compound, right? Like caffeine, for example. And otherwise, yeah, I mean, I just don't see why, like to keep, for electrolytes and stuff like that. But like, if you're over there slamming sugar and like refined carbs or even honey, maple syrup, what's another one? Jaggery, just one more, God damn it, nectar, whatever that shit is. Probably not a good idea unless you're an athlete, right? Otherwise, yeah, fruits and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. So, yeah. Leave your question and comments down below. Again, carbs are not bad. It's just that they're probably not necessary. And I think there's a lot of things to kind of consider. And when we're talking about nutrient deficiencies and stuff, if you're eating refined carbs, you're probably going to have an increased nutrient intake for like vitamin B1 and stuff like that. But a lot of these things are highly dependent. And another thing I didn't mention is like a lot of these refined carbs and carbs in general seem to feed like pathogens like candida and like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and things that affect that. And so it's like I just think that there needs to be a heavier discretion on this. I think this is a pretty like significant thing that people can tweak and experience crazy benefits, but people just don't focus on this. They focus on all the other crazy shit. So yeah, leave your question and comments down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know your experiences, and I'll talk to y'all next time.